Viktor Frankl said, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms. To choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's way." This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson. Stay tuned for the next hour as Sue explores the human psyche, what makes us tick, and how to live better, more fulfilled and more meaningful lives. Only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, this is Sue Jackson on the Finding Human program. And today my guest is Merissa Moritz. I've been trying to get her on my program for a long time. And at last she is here with me. Welcome, Merissa.
Thank you for having me, Sue.
It's so good to have you. I have known Merissa since she was a little girl, and I have seen her unbelievable resilience even as a young child. She and my son were at the yeshiva together in primary school.
Yeah.
And she's just always had this unbelievable aura about her of resilience, which I've always admired. Today, we're calling our topic A Warrior Mother. And, you know, it was actually from just a little quote that I saw about a warrior mother, which I'll find just now and tell you about. But Merissa has gone through a very, very hard journey with her whole family and is still going through a lot of it. But her courage is unbelievable. I knew Marissa's mom, Helen, well, and I know her mom-in-law, Judy Moritz, well. So, you know, I also am aware that Merissa has been interviewed by High FM. If you would like it to go onto any of those programs, look up Monique Bondi and Simone Herring. Yes, you can learn a lot from both of them. Right, you know that there's a quote that says, "The best medicine is not found in a bottle. Sometimes it's in a mother's smile." Now, Merissa, tell me how you have learned to smile all these years. Can we go back to discussing what happened to your son, Isaac, that changed all your lives? But before doing that, can I just ask you, let's just tell everybody about how many children you have and how long you've been married for.
So I've been married for 28 years.
Huh.
We have 5 children. We have 4 older sons, and we thought that was our family. And then at perimenopausal age of 43, I had my daughter.
And actually, I was quite amused. You gave a wonderful talk for a Shabbos project, and you said you thought initially that it was an ectopic pregnancy or a problem, probably with yourself, but it wasn't. There was a new baby.
The doctors monitored me for 3 days. They confirmed it was ectopic. It had every sign of an ectopic pregnancy, and they took me in for surgery to take away the ectopic pregnancy. And so I went in thinking that they were going to close my tubes and they were taking out their pregnancy. I was 43. And I woke up to find that I was indeed pregnant, and what they thought was an ectopic pregnancy was the corpus luteal cyst that supports a pregnancy with all the hormones. Mine had burst. So either way, I probably would have miscarried had they not gone in. And the pregnancy didn't show until about, I think it was like 6.5, 7 weeks.
Wow.
So they said that was a little miracle. They don't...
Absolutely. And you called her Netanya.
Yes.
What does Netanya mean?
It means a gift from God.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks, Craigie.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson. Only on 101.9 High FM.
This is Sue Jackson on the Finding Human program, and my guest today is Merissa Moritz. And Marissa is going to take us back to a very traumatic time, and then we're going to look at the unbelievable resilience of Merissa and her family. But can we go on to the 24th of December 2021? What happened that changed all your lives?
So my son Isaac was at the beach with my other son and some friends, and they went swimming, and he dived into a wave with friends, and under what we believe is that under his wave was a sandbank, and he hit his head and he broke his neck and was paralyzed from the neck down. Thank God, over time we learned that it was an incomplete spinal cord injury, which meant that there was hope and some movement could come back.
And Merissa, you yourself are an occupational therapist.
Yes.
And you also had many times when your resilience was tested in your life. So did you feel that any of those traumatic events came into play as you ran up to Isaac to help him?
So it's very hard to isolate, if those previous traumatic events helped me to deal at that moment with Isaac. But I think when I look back at my life and different things that I had gone through, I think the topic of like growing resilience or growing the ability to deal with it, I definitely think those things helped me grow into a place where I could cope more and deal more, and my relationship with God and those kind of things. At the moment with my son, when I ran onto the beach, when my older son called to say, something's happened to Isaac, Mom, you need to come quick. I think there's a motherly instinct that you just take charge at that time. It wasn't the time to break down and freak out. It was, I also think being an OT and having some knowledge helped me to deal with the situation I found on the beach. And when I saw that Isaac was hypothermic and the young lifeguards didn't really know how to deal with him, I could instruct the situation a little bit while waiting for the paramedics to arrive.
And you had to wait a long time. This was in Cape Town, and it was gridlocked, the traffic.
Yes.
And so you actually had to keep the whole situation calm.
Well, it wasn't just me. There was a guy from, I think it's CSO, because they don't have Hatsola there. He was like a basic. He didn't have a major equipment, but he was there. There were some really kind people on the beach that helped. There were some student doctors. It's a bit of a blur. I think there was a doctor there. And then there was an amazing guy who, to this day, we're in contact with, who saw that everyone was taking care of Isaac's medical needs, but no one was just holding his hand. And until I got to the beach, this amazing guy, a stranger to us, not anymore, but then was holding Isaac's hand and talking to him and just keeping him present. And that for me was unbelievable. I will always be indebted to him.
He
really was an
stepping
angel
forward.
Completely.
And you say that relationship has gone on?
Yes. Well, we'll always be indebted to him. Even when I got there, he continued to hold Isaac's hand while I managed the scene and whatever. And my husband couldn't come down to the beach because he had COVID at the time.
It was in the COVID season.
Yes. Yeah.
And when you eventually got to Isaac was taken to Grooterschuur?
No, to Christian Barnard.
Okay. And why Christian Barnard as a matter of interest?
Well, I think that's the biggest private hospital with a good trauma unit. Okay. Because it takes in a lot of it's a private hospital, it's a net care, and I think it takes, it's like, I think the equivalent of the Mill Park here, where a lot of the trauma would go.
So at that stage, you actually had to then hand Isaac over to strangers.
Yes.
How was that for you?
I think that you just know where you stand. You know where you are I'm his mom, but he needed to get the right medical care. And I think as a parent, I was just so grateful to have him in a safe medical space of people that I I believed would be God's angels in this journey. I just remember when they took him into the resus room and they closed those doors. At that moment, that's when that term when your kishkas drain, I literally collapsed on the floor. I think that's when the adrenaline and everything just flew out, just came out of me. And
were you on your own?
I
then?
was on my own, yeah.
Very hard.
Yeah,
especially being COVID.
Yeah.
So no one could come and
well,
actually
my
be with
husband,
you.
eventually they let Gabriel in when they realized how critical it was and he had to wear 2 masks and whatever. But at that time, I was on my own.
Gosh, that must have been very hard. Going back to your own life for a moment, tell me a few incidents that happened where you yourself had to hold things together. Because I find that amazing that everything almost brought you to this point.
Yes. So if I look through my journey of life, and I speak for myself, I think the first thing is that the first child we had, he was born 2 months early in George, and I think he was on a ventilator. He had severe hyaline membrane disease. He was born at 1.4 kilograms. And I think at that young age, I started having to learn that I wasn't in control. I just had basic faith, but I hadn't learned the about bitachon and true trust. I remember being afraid to sleep at night, not knowing what the next morning would bring. I also say during that time, there was a woman in our ward who had triplets, and her one triplet passed away, and the father kept saying, but my baby was like yours yesterday. Huh. And just trying to keep in my own lane and not trying to create a story in my head. And I think that slow journey, just started growing me in a way that had it been a normal pregnancy, a normal birth probably wouldn't have.
So you almost had to go into a sense of mindfulness.
Yes.
To remove yourself from the chaos that was going on in the ward at the time.
And also start learning and finding a journey with Hashem, knowing that I wasn't in control of my baby, and things that I was meant to hold my baby when he was born. That everyone spoke about the bonding, and I learned that actually just holding his little fingers was bonding, and being able to, just to have to redefine that it's
motherhood almost.
Yeah, it's a whole.
But how beautiful, because what you're saying, then you got to the beach and there was a stranger holding your other son's hand. And that's almost like a cycle of life, that you started with your oldest son holding his little hand, and then someone else was holding your other son's hand.
Yeah.
Very beautiful. Thank you, Craigie.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, this is Sue Jackson on the Finding Human program. And my guest today is Merissa Moritz. If you'd like to send us any messages, questions, or just any messages, please do so on 061 895 1019. Right, Merissa, back to you. I would like you to explain to me, when I was reading the talk that you'd given for Shabbos, the Shabbos Project, I was incredibly moved. You spoke about 2 attempts that could have taken your life, your children's lives. Can you just tell me a bit about that? I would love people to know how you found the strength to move through that and not to collapse.
So the first one was with my second son. I was fetching him from school.
How old was he at the time?
He was 2 at the time. And it was raining and I was holding an umbrella. And I felt somebody pull me from the back. And the next thing, I see a gun pointed to my son.
Were you holding your son?
I was holding him. He was in my arms. And the guy grabbed my left hand and started putting my finger in his mouth to take off, to bite. In those days, I think they bit the finger to get off the ring. And I don't know how I said it, but I said to him, let me put my hand straight, my ring comes off easily. And he took it out his mouth, and I pulled my ring off, and I gave it to him, and I felt like he came from the sky and went back to the sky. Like it's just a very...
out of body almost.
Yeah, very out of body experience. But I have to say that I think that incident, never mind anything else, was my greatest trauma and the catalyst to, I believe, my greatest growth and my building of resilience. Because up until that stage, I had a very immature view of the world. I think I thought that if people were good and you treated people with respect, then life would reflect that back to you. And I felt that at that age, I learned that in life, 1 + 1 did not always equal 2. And I saw my life like a salt cellar, and I felt that every grain had been displaced. I had to redefine what safety meant, my relationship with God, my understanding about people. It just blew me. That whole thing really, your whole life you try to protect your children, and suddenly there's a gun at my child, and it really messed with me very badly. And I went to 2 or 3 different people to try and help me, with it. My husband wasn't part of that. He wasn't there when that incident happened. So my hypervigilance that started coming as a result of it, it took he couldn't identify with this crazy person I had become about locking doors. And, eventually I realized that I had to do a lot of work on my trust in Hashem, and I started learning about bitachon, not just faith, what it meant to let go, what control meant. It was not months, but years of real hard work on learning to hand over and understanding my place in the world. And I feel that journey helped me so much for what was to still come in my life. I was then held up a few years later. It was more of a family. I went to drop, Isaac had to go in for surgery, and I dropped 2 of my other boys were going to their aunt and uncle to sleep that night. And when I pulled into their driveway, we were surrounded by guns, and it was a whole hold up in the house with cable ties and the whole story. And I think the ability to hold my kids through that and get myself through that was very much supported by what the work I had done from the first hold up.
Terrifying, though. There's I don't know if you've ever heard of hysterical strength. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
I hadn't heard of it either until a while ago when I was thinking of you coming on my program, and it's a phenomenon of a mother developing superhuman strength to lift a car off her trapped child.
I have heard that.
And, it tells the real life story of Angela Cavallo, who lived in America, and her son was working under the car, and it was jacked up, and the jack slipped, and the car fell on her son, trapping him completely under the car. She heard this, she rushed out, and she lifted the car, superhuman strength, and she shouted until neighbors came to help her, and her son managed to be pulled to safety. Now that sort of strength, they were saying, you can't keep that strength going, because it would adrenaline, you would be absolutely drive all your adrenaline eventually. So that strength is almost momentary.
Yes.
And it's almost as though that's what happened to you on both those occasions. Superhuman strength to keep your presence about you. And then again with Isaac and your mom, Can we just talk a little bit about your mom? I remember her so clearly.
I always loved talking about my
Yeah,
mom.
and the children loved your mother.
Yes.
All your friends.
Yeah.
They were scared of her, I might add. Even Mark behaved when your mother was around.
Yeah, my mother would always say it was Helen Heldenmuth double H. Either it will be Helen Heldenmuth or double hell. Yeah. So I think a large part, you don't realize as a child of a strong parent how you learn. They never sit you down and say, this is how you deal with things. But I think you don't even realize how, as you're growing up, you learn so much from your parent. And
a single parent.
And a single parent. My mom was a single parent. She worked a lot. And the mother I had when I was younger was very different to the mother I had when I was older. But I think through my life with my mom, watching her, she just always made a plan. She always showed up. And especially with her journey, she had leukemia. 27 years. Initially, it was chronic leukemia, which morphed into an acute leukemia. But the blessing was that it started as a chronic leukemia, so it slowly progressed worse and worse. So it started with the first year she didn't need chemo. The second year it would be maybe 1 chemo session. A few years later it would be 2, and so it went on. It just kept developing.
And how did she actually tell you about it?
I'll never forget. I will never forget that day. I was in her room. She always had her hot curlers going in on the carpet.
And how old were you?
I was 25. I had just gotten engaged, actually. And she didn't look right. And I said to her, Mom, what's wrong? And she said to me, no, nothing. I said to her, Mom, I can see in your eyes something isn't right. What's wrong? And she sat me down, and she the first thing she said to me is, I'm so grateful Judy's going to be your mother-in-law. She said, because then you'll have a mother.
Huh.
I didn't even know what she was talking about. I said, what are you saying, Mom? She said to me, I had to go for blood tests to change my medical aid, and they found out I have leukemia.
Oh, wow.
And that's how she told me. And she said, all I'm saying is, thank God you will have Judy as your other mother. And I was literally just about to, we were just engaged. And then, thank God it was 27 years. And she was amazing, and she was there for almost everything. And I learned a lot from my mom. Cancer lived with my mother. My mother didn't live with cancer. And her whole attitude she used to say to me, if I feel terrible here or I feel terrible at home, what difference does it make? She would go out. She would do whatever she wanted. When she went for chemo, she would look like she was going to a wedding.
Yeah, always with makeup on and hair beautifully done.
Everything matched her glasses. And when she would go into a hospital, that was when I had the biggest work, because I had to pack the pajamas with the glasses, with the eyeshadow, with the slippers. Everything had to match. But she was incredible, and I feel that my children learned a lot from her. Isaac is a lot like her. My daughter Natanya has her strong personality.
Unbelievable. And that clothing that you speak about, you said that it was important how with Isaac, when Isaac was in and out of hospital, and especially when he was really bad, that you got up, you dressed, you put makeup on. Yes. Tell me about that. Why did you do that? Was it because your mom had always done it? Was it a lesson you'd learned?
I'm not sure if it's, I'm sure it is, because my mom used to say, I used to say to Mommy, I feel like when I was little, I used to say, I feel like you've got fairies in your makeup. You put it on your face and you look completely different.
Oh,
and
sweet.
I just think that when your internal is so desperate and so painful, if your external almost reflects what's internal, there's nothing pulling you out. Like if you don't make that effort to get dressed and show up for yourself. It's not about anyone else, but it allows you to just step out of being pulled down by the pain that you feel inside.
That's such a beautiful way of saying it. You know, Leo Buscaglia tells the story of his mom, and they were immigrants, and his dad came home and he said that his business was collapsing because someone had defrauded him. And his mom went out and she said, we're going to be having a special meal. Anyway, they called it the misery meal. And she sold some of her jewelry, came back and had this lavish meal. And the rest of the family, this big Italian family, said, you know, you need this money for other things. And she said, rubbish, we've got to celebrate that we're all together and we can get through this. And she called it the misery meal. And you know what, it's that dressing up and going out or doing something that shows that you actually are still in control to a certain extent.
Completely, yeah.
Now, going back to Isaac, that ICU must have been hell when he was in ICU.
Brooding, yeah.
How long was he in ICU for?
For 2 months.
And then tell me about the decision to come back to Johannesburg.
So he was in ICU in Cape Town. That was only from the 24th of December to the 18th of January. We never, as Gabriel and I, we didn't even contemplate that Isaac would be able to move back to Johannesburg. We started looking into a school for Netanya in Cape Town, and my boys they were either at university, and the son older than Isaac was in his matric year, and I knew that I wanted to be there for him in Johannesburg, but I wasn't quite sure yet how we were going to do that. But I knew I couldn't leave a 5-year-old in Johannesburg with us in Cape Town. So I was starting to look into school in Cape Town, and via the grapevine, Dr. Ruvain Jacks, who is the trauma surgeon at Auckland, at Mill Park, heard that this is where we were at, that our family was being split, and it was already a very fragile family, very fragile, and I needed to be with all my children, not just Isaac. And he contacted us, and basically through him and my husband organizing, we got an ICU airlift, and he personally came to fetch Isaac and make sure he was stable enough with the special paramedics that fly. They came to fetch Isaac, and a plane was adapted as an ICU plane, and they flew him back to the Mill Park.
Were you on the plane?
I was on the plane, and Gabriel.
Oh, the two of you.
Yeah, we both were, yeah.
And then once you got... And what happened to your daughter, Netanya?
So my daughter was brought back to Joburg by, I think it was my cousin.
Okay.
And so she was only home for about 2 days without us. My cousin, you know, my family were incredible. My brother came from America. My cousin came from Australia to look after my family.
Wow.
And yeah, he came to Mill Park, and then he was there for another month and a half.
And how did you find the different hospitals? Was it easier being home, or was it harder? Because once you were home, you had to also take care of your home and your children here.
So they were both as they were meant to be, and they were both incredible. So in Cape Town, he was in a normal ICU ward. When we got to Johannesburg, they actually organized, because Isaac had just turned 15, so he was not yet an adult, but they didn't put him in a pediatric ICU, and the adult ICU is really hectic, and the Netcare organized a private ICU room for Isaac.
Wow.
Right next door, the neuro ICU in Mill Park.
Huh.
So we could be with Isaac literally 24/7. Around the clock, somebody could be with him. And he still received the ICU care, but not with the craziness of
the chaos.
The chaos of an ICU ward. Also, if you can imagine, his rooms were made into sanctuaries of hope. People sent posters and tehillim and messages, and they were all over the walls. And the support in terms of running my home, our community, our friends, Sue, I can't even explain to you how unbelievable that was. That I think for a parent, the most painful thing is having your heart in two places. So we needed to be with Isaac, but we still needed to be there for all our children. And at least being in Joburg, we could balance the two.
Wow, what a balancing act.
Yeah.
I want to get back to the fact that you and Gabriel pulled together, because the other traumatic experiences, it was your experience.
Yes.
Here, it was the two of you.
Yes.
Can we get back to that shortly? Thank you, Craig.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
Hi, this is Sue, and I'm back with Merissa Moritz, and you were listening to the very short audio clip called Be Proud of Your Scars. And Merissa and I are both in tears, and it's the kintsugi technique, which is so beautiful. What did it mean to you?
So even I can hear when you played that the first time, I don't know how many years ago, it was before Isaac's accident. And I was driving in my car, and it hit me so deeply. And I messaged you afterwards to say, please, can you send it to me? And since then, I listen to it so often. And even now, every time I hear it, it like goes into my veins. I feel like it feeds me with just the most unbelievable way of looking at life, the way of, it's unbelievable. It really is beautiful.
I found it so profound.
It's
and you
very
know,
profound.
On a practical level, if I've broken something, I am very tempted, and I often do, stick it together. And I'm not very good at sticking things together, so Leon has to step in with a glue gun sometimes and fix things. Merissa, but let's look at the cracks that you're healing, and let's look at you and Gabriel, because you literally had gone through those unbelievable experiences alone, and Gabriel was working, and you were bringing up your children. What has it done to your relationship? This.
So, Sue, I think that one of the biggest lessons that I've learned through this, look, in the previous traumas that I had, like the two hold-ups, as Gabriel wasn't there, they were just to me. So I had to go through my own journey. He also had to go through a journey on having to learn to support my post-hijacking craziness and my hypervigilance, and we got through that. I think when a family goes through something so extreme like we went through with Isaac, and the trauma happens to everybody in the family in different ways, and no two people respond to trauma the same way. And in a marriage, you almost have to relearn each other. It's you cope differently. No one is right or wrong. You deal with things differently. You process differently. Somebody might ask more questions. Somebody might shoot more from the hip. Let's just do what the doctor says. And, things like that can create so much stress when you process even just a medical problem differently. And what Gabriel and I think, have learned through this journey is it can literally tear you apart because you're so different. But if you choose to reconnect, relearn each other, learn how does it work for you? Why do you process like that? How do I process it? And try find compassion for each other. Try find understanding of each other, and develop a bond that is that takes your relationship to another level of acceptance of each other
and depth.
That the normal way of life wouldn't expose your relationship to. And I feel that I'm proud of the way Gabriel and I have come through this, the way we have worked hard. It's not easy. It's not saying that it just worked. We chose this. We chose to relearn each other. We chose to sit many times in painful spaces and speak and learn how each other, trying to learn how we each deal with things differently without judgment.
That's a painful journey, because often you're unpacking things that you've kept inside in order to survive.
Yes.
Both of you. And all of a sudden you are choosing to bring those hidden aspects of yourself to the fore. Did you go for help for that?
Not really. I think we went once, but for the most part we just sat and spoke. I actually go to somebody on my own, and I felt very empowered to discuss with Gabriel, and then Gabriel also went to somebody on his own, and together we would have gone, but we were able to
do it.
And it's not something we really speak much about, but at the same time of Isaac's accident, keeping in mind that my husband's business and the whole thing and the breaking down of Kame all happened at the same time. So we were dealing with stuff that wasn't just Isaac.
Wow.
There was trauma on many levels all at the same time.
Well, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I have to say, honestly, I saw you and Gabriel out a few months ago, and my heart soar, when I say soared, lifted. No, not soar. It actually lifted when I saw the two of you chatting away at the table out for dinner. It just did something. It lifted me up to see the two of you together. Thank you, Craigie.
This is Finding Human with Sue Jackson, only on 101.9 High FM.
Hello, this is Sue, and I'm back with Merissa Moritz. If you've got any messages, please send them through on 061-895-1019. I know that a lot of messages come through afterwards because people don't like to, they don't want to fiddle with their phone or whatever. Merissa, as you were talking, I was thinking, Brené Brown said this: we cultivate love when we allow our most vulnerable and powerful selves to be deeply seen and known. And that is the space that you and Gabriel actually opened to each other.
Yes.
And you've also done that allowing people in. How have you allowed people in? What in you has seen that you can allow people in?
So, I think also it's a gradual process. I think from my previous experiences, like when my late dad passed away, it was in 2014, and I had to go to America. He lived in America. He got leukemia, also AML, acute myeloid leukemia. He literally died within 2 months.
Oh.
And I had to go to America. Literally, I went every 2 weeks. And someone from the shul said to me, Merissa, let us make you meals while you go. And my first response was, no, don't worry, it's fine. I'll pre-cook and I'll do it. And then she looked at me and she said, let us help you.
Oh.
And that was my first little taste of allowing that. We're so good at saying, no, don't worry, I've got this under control. I can do it. I can freeze meals. What's the difference? I'll put it in the freezer. And that was the first taste of saying, actually, I'm happy to have some help from the community. And when I went to America all those times, and they helped. Then again, when my mom passed away, you receive meals, you become a recipient. When Isaac had his accident, I realized that there is not a chance I could do this alone. I couldn't do it alone. I had to let people in. People made meals for months and months. I had people that I don't even know all who they are that made school lunch for my children. How incredible is that?
Absolutely.
And I started realizing that being vulnerable is not a weakness. it's a strength. It's allowing. Also, people can't fix a circumstance that you're in. Nobody could take my pain away. Couldn't fix Isaac. Can't fix the pain of my other children. But by allowing people in, gives them a gift of giving, and allows them to be part of a journey that they can't fix. And it is very powerful for me to look at people and say, I know you're part of our journey. I couldn't have done it without them. There was no ways.
Saying that, I've watched and I've been part of through the years the prayer group, the Tehillim group that was started on the beach actually by your now daughter-in-law, Tully. And you post things on there, keeping us all abreast of what's happening with Isaac, which is wonderful. Have you been surprised at some people who you thought would be there and they aren't, and others who have stepped forward to fill a space?
Yeah, for the most part, I think if there are people where I would have thought there would be more, it's maybe one or two. But for the most part, people have been unbelievable. From family members to friends to people who weren't even my good friends, some people that I don't really even know that well. I have to say that the community and friends and family have just been unbelievable to this date. And the other thing I want to say is how much you learn from other people. How much I have learned from so many other people who have been there for me, has taught me how to be there for others.
In what way? Give us an example.
Just from the way they have, there's one lady who, yes, her son is friendly with Isaac, but she, just at random Shabbases, she would come and just bring challahs just to, just to say
something.
Whatever. Just watching other people, the way they deal with certain things. I have a friend who's been through a whole journey in her life, and how much I learned from her, how she deals with things. It's so important. Brené Brown actually says that somebody else's story can be another person's survival guide.
Absolutely.
And that's actually a big part of why I also like to talk, is because you never know who can benefit. There's so many things that I've learned through something else someone said, or even the thing you posted with the gold. It touched me so deeply. I learned so much from it. And we have to gain and learn from everyone.
Absolutely. I'm being told already to wrap up, but I just wanted to say, Merissa, that you introduced me to Andy DaCosta, and we all learned so much from her. And just before we go to the end, we will be doing this again because there's so much to still discuss. But just to, tell us, how is Isaac today?
He's amazing. He's really an amazing, amazing guy who is funny. He is he's in rehab, then he's going to university, and no matter what he feels in the day, he shows up every single day with a good sense of humor.
Well, I look forward to having him on our program too. Craig is telling me to wrap up, but just let me tell you what Carolyn May said about our wounds. She says, we are not meant to stay wounded. We are supposed to move through our tragedies and challenges and to help each other move through the many painful episodes of our lives. By remaining stuck in the power of our wounds, we block our own transformation. We overlook the greater gifts inherent in our wounds, the strength to overcome them, and the lessons that we are meant to receive through them. Wounds are the means through which we enter the hearts of other people. They are meant to teach us to become compassionate and wise.
I couldn't agree more.
Thank you so much, Merissa, for being with me. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Vusi, and thank you, Makundi.